Welcome to the second part of our Barker Character Comic and Cartoon Museum tour. Herb and Gloria Barker invite you to meet some of the earliest toys in their collection, dating from the 1870s through to 1930. We ended the first tour with our 1873 cast iron ramp walker elephants, manufactured by the Ives Company in Bridgeport, Connecticut. But many toys from that period were made of wood decorated with paper images. This Beasts and Birds alphabet game was manufactured in 1874 by Lyman and Whitney of Leominster, Massachusetts. The letters are round for use as rolling toys and have pictures of animals on the backs to correspond to the letters on the front. That made it a great toy for children with limited access to books. Reversible alphabet puzzles were also popular with beautiful lithographs mounted on wood. This puzzle from 1880 is a fairly alarming depiction of a folk tale that was soon to produce some of the first cartoon superstars. In 1887, the Canadian illustrator Palmer Cox introduced pen and ink mayhem to the world in the form of the Brownies. Inspired by Scottish folk tales, they were a ragtag gang of mischievous elves who set out every night to wreak havoc wherever they could. They were so popular that Eastman Kodak's first portable camera, designed for families in 1900, was named the Brownie Camera. Life was changing rapidly in the early years of the 20th century as the Industrial Revolution gathered momentum. Waves of immigrants arrived from all over the world and moved into the cities to work in the new factories. They worked long hours under brutal conditions for low wages, and if their children weren't also working in the factories, they were running loose in the city streets. The cartoonist R.F. Outco portrayed that life in 1895 with a full-page single panel called Hogan's Alley. The most popular character was named Mickey Dugan, but was known mostly as the Yellow Kid, because he always appeared in a long yellow nightshirt. His head was shaved, as many children's were in those days, after a bout of head lice. The Yellow Kid was the first comic strip character to have his own line of merchandise. This is a cast-iron cap bomb manufactured by the Ives Company, who made the elephant ramp walkers. The New York Journal also issued hundreds of pinback buttons, showing him in various poses and predicaments. Once the Yellow Kid's appeal began to fade, Outco began a new strip called Buster Brown in 1902. The strip was an instant hit, and when it came to merchandising, Buster put the Yellow Kid to shame. Outco sold the rights to Buster's image to over 50 manufacturers and made a bundle of money off him. One of the businessmen to purchase Buster's image was George Brown, the founder of the Brown Shoe Store. He had run a successful shoe business for 25 years already, but by linking his brand to the popular cartoon character, he created an empire. Buster Brown Shoes is still in business 100 years later, and many boomers remember their first Saturday morning kids show, Andy's Gang, which starred Andy Devine and all the Buster Brown characters, including the creepy Froggy the Gremlin. That was sponsored by Buster Brown Shoes. Buster's first move from newspaper comic strip to live-action film was in 1904, when he starred in a silent film produced by inventor Thomas Edison. Universal Studios followed with its own series of silent Buster Brown films during the 1920s. Buster's dog Tige, by the way, was played by Pete the Pup, who went on to play himself in the Our Gang comedies. Thomas Edison was working on many groundbreaking inventions in the 1890s. The Edison phonograph, patented in 1877, was capable of playing 2 minutes of music using a tinfoil-covered cylinder. For the first time, middle-class families could enjoy music in their homes at the turn of a crank. After pausing to invent the incandescent light bulb in 1901, he went back to improve the design of the phonograph to play a wax cylinder, which could be mass-produced, reducing the cost. Meanwhile, Eldridge Johnson was developing the Victor phonograph, which played a more easily operated disc. Many people disliked the look of the large amplifying horn, though, and in 1905 he found a way to build it into a smaller tabletop unit. He named it the Victrola, and it quickly outsold Edison's phonograph. This is the 1911 Victrola, compact and much less expensive than the floor model, making it affordable for many more families. In 1907, the artist Bud Fisher introduced Augustus Mutt to the world in the very first successful 6-day-a-week panel strip to run in newspapers. Readers enjoyed Mutt, an easy-going doofus who robbed payphones to support his gambling addiction. But a year later, his popularity soared when he picked up his sidekick Jeff, a certifiable nut who just left the insane asylum. When the U.S. presidential elections came along in 1908, Mutt was the first comic character to announce his candidacy, representing the Bughouse Party. Many popular newspaper comics were instigated by Captain Joseph Patterson, the editor of the Chicago Tribune. In 1917, Patterson's brainchild was the ultimate anti-hero, a hairless, chinless, lower-middle-class father with delusions of grandeur. Andy Gump claimed to have invented the flower pot, and he too ran for president in 1924. These are little bisque dolls of him and his family, several of which were the very first bobblehead dolls to be produced. In 1923, Captain Patterson wanted a comic strip about a roughneck boxer. Cartoonist Frank Willard came up with Moon Mullins, a fast-talking hustler with a foul-mouthed little brother named K.O. They lived in a boarding house with an assortment of losers and con men, and were usually one step away from disaster. As the 1910s turned into the 20s, more of the population moved to the newly emerging suburbs, and kids played in vacant lots instead of city streets. Comic strips like Bringing Up Father, Gasoline Alley, and Toonerville Folks gained in popularity. In the 1920s, a series of live-action films based on the Toonerville Folks strip were produced for theaters. A child actor named Joe Yule, Jr. played the role of the young troublemaker Mickey McGuire. The part was so well received that the actor tried to adopt the name as his own, until the owners of the strip ordered him to give it up. He kept the Mickey, but changed McGuire to Rooney, enjoying a long happy career as Mickey Rooney. He also provided the voice for Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. One of the first international animated cartoon stars making his debut in 1919 was Felix the Cat. His film appearances were followed by a Sunday cartoon strip in 1923, soon to appear daily through popular demand. A Felix doll like this was the very first image to be broadcast on television in 1928 on the brand new channel No. 1 from New York. Charles Lindbergh carried a small Felix doll for luck in his monoplane, the Spirit of St. Louis, on his first nonstop solo flight across the Atlantic in 1927. This calendar from 1929 advertises his career as one of the first pilots to deliver airmail. He normally flew a de Havilland DH-4 biplane for that dangerous work, not the Spirit of St. Louis as shown on the calendar. Lithographed tin toys were in great demand during the 20s and 30s. Few families could afford the elaborate wind-up toys and automatons, but most children had a few of these advertising tin tops, clickers, and whistles. These are printed with the images of popular cartoons, radio and movie stars, or the names of stores, and given away or sold as penny toys. Now that you've had a look at some of our oldest toys, Herb and Gloria invite you to visit our website at www.barkermuseum.com.